Welcome to Thursday Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursday Thursdays. I am Jesse Ott, and I am very excited. I have the one and only Rachel Martin here today, and she is the founder and CEO of Oceano Wines, who is also a pioneer in the luxury low and no alcohol wine segment, which I'm super, super excited to try. We do have a tasting planned for today, but she is sold out of her non-alcoholic wines, so we are doing a 2023 Syrah tasting, and it's low alcohol. I think it's 3.5%. So that is happening today. I'm super excited. Welcome, Rachel.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for having me. I have my bottle here too, so I'm
All
looking
right.
for an early tipple myself.
Yeah, it's 3 o'clock here, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
That's right.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So where are you calling from?
I live in New York City, and you can see my beautiful background.
Yeah.
I happen to be home, which I'm usually traveling. So I'm calling from my home office, in fact. And I haven't lived here for that long. I'm new to New York. Let's call it 7 years. It still feels new because it's quite a city to get used to.
Yes, it is. Where are you originally from?
Well, I grew up in Southern California. However, I was born in Virginia, in Charlottesville, Virginia. But my dad was a professor of economics at university. So we kind of did like the university shuffle and similar to the military kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I lived in a lot of different places.
That's cool. I guess it's cool, and it has its pros and cons.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
It's cool to know what it's like to live in different parts of the country, but when you're that young, you're trying to establish relationships, and you're
Really.
always moving and meeting new people, and we didn't have Facebook back then and
Yeah, it was pretty
texting.
tough. Yeah, I think I lived in 5 different areas before the age of 5. And then after that, I was born in Charlottesville. Then 6 months later, we moved to Rotterdam. And then I think we went back to Virginia and then over to California. So it's and Miami. So it's been a trip, but I think it, of course, just adds more layers of context, world context, and kind of really formed who I am in my personality wise. And you have to, I guess, blend in or, figure out a way to assimilate and make friends,
Yep.
which you have to be an extrovert at time, knowing like the cadence or like the style of like being an extrovert or introvert or what you share, what you don't. So it's made it easy for me to move around and adapt to different countries. I lived in France for a year to study wine. So I lived in Bordeaux for a year
Nice.
and just had to quickly adapt new country, new city, but new language. And you just, you know how we do. We figure it out.
Yep. You figure it out. I lived in France for a year too, but it was at a English speaking school. There were foreigners from all over the world. We all spoke English, and then the students at a certain age started speaking English as well.
Yeah,
So a lot easier than your situation.
Yeah, no, I was like 29 or something, and it was all university level French. So, sink or swim.
Here you go. I used to have my workbook on writing sentences, and was it educating the verbs?
Yes,
Conjugating the verbs from past, present, and I forget all the silliness of it all, but yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. In fact, I was a runner. I'm not a runner anymore, and I would conjugate during my runs when I lived in Bordeaux.
There you go. You have to do it. Otherwise, it's just you can't
Well,
speak
it
it.
keeps your mind off running too, frankly.
Yeah, sure does. For sure, for sure. So would you say that you kinda grew up as an adult then in California, in Southern California?
Yeah, I mean, up until high school. So it was really like I feel like I grew up at Disneyland. We're about 15 miles away from Disneyland. So I
Nice.
had like my birthdays there. I went to the beach all the time. We rode our bikes to the beach. And so that was kind of like
Nice.
I have this idealistic, memory of what my life was like. And then we moved back to Virginia, and that was really tough because I was used to going to the beach. We moved to Northern Virginia right outside of DC. And the first summer, it snowed like crazy. It was in the 80s. And my brother had brought a surfboard to Virginia, and we used it as a sled.
Nuh-uh. That's nuts.
So funny. So yeah, so I was still kind of young, whatever, high school. But as soon
Yeah.
as I graduated from high school, because of that idealistic memory, I immediately drove back to California right after high school. So I tried to establish myself there, and then, skipping college, frankly, and then I realized the value of an education when I was uh, working at a pizza place delivering pizzas. 17 years old, I was living on my own. So I
Yeah.
moved back to Virginia, and went and got an education, but finally finished my studies in fine arts, a bachelor's of fine arts from the Museum School of Fine Arts in Boston, and then went on to start my wine career and my education in wine, and then followed by my career into where I am present day.
So, okay, so so you decided to go the fine arts route in Massachusetts. So what school? Like, did they have a particular program you were
Sure.
interested in?
Yes, the School of the Museum of Fine Arts, which is a diploma program. It's not an accredited college. So I took studio courses there, and through the program and the accreditation program, I did all of my like art history, all my electives, and everything at Tufts University. So my diploma is actually from Tufts University, but my
Okay.
core work and my focus was fine art, specifically photography, from the Museum School of Fine Arts in Boston. It's a
Fun.
highly regarded school for fine art, but I didn't realize I wanted to do fine art until I tried out commercial art, and I did photography school at a school called Brooks Institute of Photography when people did film, like cellulose. Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara. So I actually have found myself back in California again, and
Wow.
then went,
You're
I
just a
know,
coast to coast jumper.
I'm a coast to coast jumper, never satisfied, always want my feet in two places. And then, yeah, then I finished in fine arts because that's really where my heart was. It wasn't about making sure the angles of a building were perpendicular. That was just like too techy for me. More of in the art space, which I believe bleeds really nicely into the wine space.
So, how do you go from your final educational journey and you said Santa Barbara to
Santa
wine?
Barbara, right? Santa Barbara to
What happened?
Massachusetts, and then to wine. Well, my stepfather is a fine wine collector, and he came into my life in my high school years, and he introduced me to fine wine as a young person. But he really, reveres wine, especially Bordeaux wines. And so I was lucky to have that exposure and to be involved in celebrating through wine and having not
Yeah,
only like big celebrations, but even just evening meals over, wine is always on the table. So wine
that's
and my
awesome.
mom, yeah, my mom before we moved back to Virginia, my mom worked at a hotel called the South Coast, West and South Coast Plaza Hotel, and she worked for the general manager, and she would go with them to all the wine tastings. So she was very
Fun.
much in F&B, yeah, food and beverage. So she was very much into wine at the time. But really, truly, it was my stepfather who's a fine wine collector, enthusiast, and educated me in fine wine. So his long held dream was to plant a vineyard and build a winery. And he was able to do so. Let's see, he and his father owned the Washington Redskins football team. And once that team was sold, he wanted to focus his energy on his interest, which mainly is fine wine, and producing that on his own in Virginia, just as
That's
Thomas
awesome.
Jefferson was always trying to do and never accomplished. So that's how I got into wine when he decided he wanted to build his dream, Boxwood Winery in Middleburg, Virginia. He asked if I would come on as the executive vice president of his company and run it for him. So I wouldn't say no to that. Like, are you
No,
kidding me?
that sounds awesome.
No way. No way. So I asked him if I did so, will you please like put me through school again, and get educated in wine. And so that's what I did. I went to Napa Valley College School of Enology and Viticulture in Napa to learn the foundations before I moved to Bordeaux to then learn in French. So that was incredible. And when I came back, I took on the position as the executive vice president of Boxwood Winery. It's a 5,000 case winery. Now it's a 26 acre vineyard.
Wow,
And I
that's
learned,
incredible.
yeah, I learned how to do everything, learned how to not only run the business, but do all of the packaging. I was in charge of the vineyard, the winery, meaning like the winemaking as well. We had a winemaker, but all of that fell under me. And then distribution, retail, licensing, direct shipping, marketing, social media. This is like when Twitter was new, and we
Yeah, I was
were
gonna
like,
ask you when it was.
yeah, we opened our doors in 2005. And so it was like I created the first, our Twitter account, our Facebook account, and then came our Instagram account, and our tasting room. And we exported to
All the
two
things.
markets, I designed the
Things.
labels.
Wow.
I did the colas, the approvals from the government for
Yep.
your labels. I was on the board of Wine America. While I was at Boxwood, I wrote a successful petition establishing Middleburg, Virginia as the state's seventh American viticultural area. That's a petition that I wrote on my own. The only person who signed their name. That went into
And no Chat
rule.
GPT back then.
Yes, it took 6 years.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
only imagine.
exactly. Needless to say, I learned a lot. I had an incredible amount of joy from it. I
Yeah.
was in a
What a great
family,
experience to
so
experience all the
so
things.
I just feel so um, grateful,
Yeah.
to have that opportunity. And then my brother joined us a few years later, and we opened 5 wine bars called the Tasting Room Wine Bar, and they were in the DC metro area, and Sean was in charge of those, with many other things, like created our wine club. And then I left in 2018, and my brother took on, the entire company, running the entire company. So even though I left to start my company, Oceano, I left it in great hands.
Yay, that's great. Well, why did you want to leave?
It's a long time to work for your family, and I didn't want to stay, frankly. I wanted to do more things with my life, and I wanted to build my own company and my own vision. In wine, I found a vineyard that inspired me greatly. And so much so, it inspired me to start my own company. And that vineyard is called Spanish Springs Vineyard. It's on the coast of San Luis Obispo, California, which is in between LA and San Francisco, like halfway. It's the closest vineyard to the ocean in the state, and that's how we named our company Oceano or
Very cool.
Oceano. It's Spanish for ocean, Italian for ocean, and it's a very, very special place. So I visited it. I was inspired,
When did you
and
go there? When you were out there for
2016.
school?
Oh,
No.
2016. It
Okay.
was at the time, my boyfriend's dad's neighbor, like across the street, owned this vineyard. I met his name is Henry Warshaw, and I met Henry, and Henry was like, "Oh, you have a vineyard. I have a vineyard. Come visit." And I guess I'm that person.
Yeah.
I'm that
East Coast,
curious.
West Coast girl.
Yeah, I was like, I'm all about
Jump
it.
on
And
that plane.
that's what I did. No big deal, right? And it inspired me. So I called my boyfriend, Kurt, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about getting into the wine business with me?" And, he's very naive and innocent. He's in theater and media. So he said, "Sure." And so that's how Oceano started. And then we started at 16. We made our first wine, a Chardonnay. And that wine, I hired a consultant. His name is Marbe Mark. And that wine was made in Napa. So we brought our grapes up to Napa. And then later, Pinot Noir came in 2018. 2018, I married Kurt and left my family's business and then moved to New York. So that's how I've been here for 7 years. But all of our wines are made and grown in California. So we started in San Luis Obispo making the wine in Napa. And now we're sourcing from vineyards outside of the San Luis Obispo region. We're now sourcing in Sonoma County on the coast of Sonoma and making our wines in Healdsburg. Some things have changed. I'm also producing non-alcoholic wine and low alcohol wine. That's a big change. There's an opportunity I realized in non-alcoholic wine that there was a lack of quality in 2002 and a lack of familiarity for people who are, real wine consumers or fine wine consumers looking for alternatives to alcohol. Not in a sobriety way, really just to manage to, drink
Right.
drink less. But they still wanted to drink well, and they weren't being met. Their needs weren't being met with what was currently available in 2022. I saw white space and I went for it, and we launched Oceano Zero Pinot Noir in 2023. It was the highest quality non-alcoholic wine in the market, the only one made like a fine wine from a highly regarded vineyard and wine region. It also just happened to be the highest price in the market. So that Pinot Noir was $55 a bottle. That's a non-alcoholic wine, single vineyard Spanish Springs, handpicked, made in the same way as all of our wines. Received, I've won domestic wine of the year for our Chardonnay. I have, 94, 5, 6 points for our wines before I started Oceano Zero. So these non-alcoholic wines are made with the same care, the same ethos, sustainable viticulture. So I am very serious about my winemaking, whether it has alcohol in it or not. So that's how Oceano Zero was born. And so we did very, very well, better than I had anticipated. So I thought, hey, this is fantastic. Let's add a Chardonnay. And that was well received. It was just in Food and Wine magazine, or it is, it's April issue. And so it was best Chardonnay they tasted by far, a rare non-alcoholic wine. So all those, like,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah, all those things. And then my customers were asking me, oh, well, what about lower alcohol? We're not really interested in non-alcoholic wines, but we want low alcohol. So I thought, no problem, I can do that. And
That's
that's when
awesome.
we started making Syrah. So we added Syrah to our portfolio and launched Oceano, where it's called Oceano Ultra Syrah, and ultra is ultra low alcohol. So 3.5% really is a quarter proof of a traditional wine.
So can we back up just a little bit? So you have this successful Oceana wine brand, your traditional brick and mortar wine brand that you've built. Were you focused on social media to help with building that brand at the time? Was that kind of how you built
Yes,
it?
because definitely, and it was always virtual. I haven't had a tasting room since I started.
Yeah, you don't need
So
one.
yeah, well, nowadays, people aren't traveling to wine countries as much, and
Yeah,
wines are available everywhere, and there's so much of it that you don't have to travel to find
yeah.
fine wines. But social media was important because you have to market yourself, you have to be out there. So social media, and then of course my contacts from my previous company, I brought them along for the ride. But social media is really important, especially now, because I have a totally new customer that I have never touched. 50% of our customers are new. So that's
That's a lot.
really, really awesome. Yeah. So social media is so important, and we're exploring different channels.
So you realize that there is an opportunity in the market because non-alcoholic wines aren't the greatest at that point. And so you're like, I know I can do this. So what was that process like? Like, where did you start? Like, what do you want to talk about your process, or is that proprietary? Like, I'm really curious on what do you do next? You're like, okay, let's do it. Now what do we do? Like, how does
Yeah,
it
well,
unfold?
sure. Well, the non-alcoholic wines, we make them in a traditional way, and we honor the fine winemaking, which means the elements. So the earth, the soils, the weather, the climate, all of these things inform what the grape tastes like. And that's why single vineyard wines matter, is because they taste like the place from where they're grown. It's also important to have traceability too. So if people pick up this bottle, Spanish Springs Vineyard, San Luis Obispo Coast, they know where these grapes came from. Can't say that in every wine. It might say California, but it's not
Right.
going to tell you. You can't go visit the vine. So it starts there, and all I've got great winemaker. His name's Rob Fisher. We're looking at building. We don't like to add things to our wine. Let me start there. So when you remove alcohol, you're removing for a lot of the body, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
one of the pain points for people. It tastes thin. So we work on building texture in the wine absent of the alcohol, or independent of the alcohol. And that is extended aging, and we use French oak barrels. Extended aging in barrel, stirring the lees. Not going to try to get too techy here, too technical with your
You're okay.
listeners,
You can
but
geek out.
okay, great. So when you ferment grape juice, so get the grapes, you put them in the tank. We do whole berry. So instead of crushing the grapes, which can lessen the integrity of the wine, you get less complexity. Anyway, the weight of the whole berries crushes the grapes below it, and you do punch downs and stuff to release the juice. Okay, so we've got juice in the tank and we have skins.
Okay.
We
I'm
add,
following. I'm
okay,
tracking.
good. I'm trying. We add yeasts, right? So we add natural yeast to the fermentation tank, and we select yeasts based upon the outcome we want. And the yeasts consume sugar, the sugar in the grape juice, and that is what produces the alcohol. So that's the exchange, is the sugar to alcohol, and then the byproduct is CO2. And that's how you have naturally, or for bottle, what do you call it? Double fermented, like the champagne method.
Gotcha.
That's how
Yeah.
the bubbles get in there. So anyway, when there's no, I'm giving a class, when
I'm interested.
no more sugar to consume, the yeast, they die. Sorry, but they die. And they fall to, just by weight, they fall to the bottom of the vessel. During aging, and this is a common practice in winemaking, if you want to build texture in the wine or body in your wine, during the aging process, you stir the lees back into contact with the wine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's full of proteins. So that builds body. We do a heck of a lot of that for knowing that when we remove the alcohol, they're still going to be there. So that's really important. But you have to be very careful, because every time you open the barrel, you're inviting bacteria, you're inviting other things, you're inviting oxygen,
Oxygen.
yes.
Yeah.
So you really need to balance
Can't you
that.
just shake the barrels like
You can
this?
just rotate it around.
Yeah.
They're real. I love it. You're an inventor. There are barrel racks that you can just spin it like that. And so we do that, and then we are removing the alcohol by using, whatever the most innovative, highest quality machinery there is for dealcoholization. Vacuum distillation is what we use. There are other methods. We use vacuum distillation, which was invented in the early 1900s. Nothing new there.
Nothing new there. Why did they do it back then?
It was a German company, and they did it to make non-alcoholic wines. And it became more
Glühwein.
Yeah, right. It became popular here in the US, notably in hot climates, where they were trying to bring the alcohol
Down.
below a threshold,
Yeah.
a tax threshold.
Mm.
So that's how it kind of got very popular.
Is it Syrah system?
No,
No.
Cone Tech is the company.
Okay.
They're now known as Bev Zero.
Okay.
And they have different methods, but one of them is a spinning cone column technology, which is vacuum distillation, but it's a different approach. What the whole sauce, the whole trick is in the aroma capture. So when you remove the alcohol, the aromatic compounds are bound within the distillate. It's about removing those compounds from the distillate and putting them back into the non-alcoholic wine. We have access to a new technology that is just setting up in California, and we're so excited to have access to it, because it seems that they're the best in aroma capture
Nice.
than anyone else. And they're a German company that's come over to the United States.
I was just having this conversation with someone else earlier that's doing a cava out of Spain, and that's why I asked about Solera. I think he said that was the name of the company.
Could it be Solos?
Maybe Solos, could be.
Kind of sounds like it.
Yeah, and it's from Germany. I mean, maybe there's a lot of them, but
well, how many, period, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, the constellations of the world, they've been doing that for a minute with, Kim Crawford and whatnot. I think they
Totally.
did the cone spinning also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was pretty good quality. I mean, it sold pretty well. So I
Definitely.
can't
Oh,
even imagine this next
better.
level. Yeah.
Better. Yeah. We're always, no matter what, not just in non-alcoholic wine, but in wine. And I guess if you're a creator, it's all about improving your last work. So
Yep.
we're constantly
Evolve.
evolving
Yep.
to make a better
That's why you're a
wine.
pioneer and you're on
That's
Thirsty
right.
Thursdays.
That's right. So we're using the Solo system in the United States, and it's brand new, and they're not even up and running yet.
Okay.
I'm just so excited about it.
That is so when will that vintage be ready then? Next year?
We are planning our
26?
release for September because we have our wines in barrel right now. So right now, our 2024 vintage of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Syrah are in barrel at the winery in Healdsburg. We will be de-alcoholizing these hopefully the end of summer and starting release in September. And we have a
Yay.
lot of people signed up on our waiting list for Oceano Zero because it sells so fast. I've only produced 2 vintages. The velocity is like 500% increase in velocity of sales I had on my second vintage.
Wow.
I know. And the only reason, we're not trying to be precious or so exclusive you can't get it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter make the grapes are the source, and the grapevines have one harvest per year, and our whole production is based upon that. And so we're kind of old school, but we're modern, and I really love that space in between.
Yeah. Yeah, because there are some traditions of wine and winemaking that are important, right, to the process. But you have to evolve and be modern at the same time. Like, I'll be
Definitely.
honest, I love the twist cap.
Right?
I do. Now I do collect like the wine corks if I can sneak them into my office before my wife throws them all away because I'm going to build something one day with
Are
all these
they a
corks.
nuisance?
It's
That's
just
hilarious.
more crap, but it's fun. I want to create something fun for the back wall or whatever.
You better hide
So,
those corks from her.
yeah, I gotta I gotta hide them, or I have to dig them out of the garbage or whatever.
Love it. Yeah. So basically the question was about our approach to non-alcoholic wine. And it's always about quality, no matter what. It's like, I hate to say no expense spared because that also kind of comes off kind of icky, but it's true. If
Yeah.
it comes down to quality, it's worth it.
Yeah. Now you have the 3 varietals. So how do you decide how much is regular alcohol, low alcohol, and no alcohol?
Well, we're totally invested in no and low. So
Okay.
even though we're making wines with alcohol, that's how they start. We are not bottling wines with alcohol, and we haven't bottled a vintage with alcohol since 2021. So we are fully invested in
Okay.
Oceano as a no and low alcohol fine wine producer. But so how do we decide what's no and what's low? Well, Syrah, I'm looking at my bottle, sorry. Syrah
Yeah.
is a very tannic and robust grape. It's like ready to
Yeah.
rock.
I love Syrah.
Yeah, great. And so
Yeah.
I felt that a tiny bit of alcohol helped smooth it out a little bit. And that's why I was hesitant to make the Syrah a non-alcoholic wine. But, also my customers were asking me for low alcohol, and the Syrah seemed like the best opportunity. I love Syrah. And from this vineyard, Spanish Springs Vineyard, it's
Hmm.
really excellent.
Okay.
So So I decided Syrah would be lower, still have some alcohol in it, just to kind of soften those hard tannic edges. And then Chardonnay, white wine typically is not tannic and is much easier to produce a better non-alcoholic wine, for lack of better terms, but it's an easier play, right? Red wine is
Yeah.
harder. I choose certain varieties based upon understanding the outcome after the alcohol is removed. So I'm not looking for anything grassy, because when you remove alcohol, you're removing a little bit of water, and that concentrates whatever is left in the wine. So if you
Yeah, that
have
makes sense.
anything that tastes a little oxidated or grassy or bitter, it's just going to be accentuated. So that's,
Makes sense.
Pinot Noir is, very low tannin, low to mid tannin wine. And I think it's a natural for it. And we're looking into other grape varieties as well.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, should we taste it
Yeah,
after
let's do
talking
it.
about it all this? Okay. What was the decision behind putting the twist cap?
Without alcohol, the wines don't last as long. And oxygen, when you have,
Look at that
yes, look at
color.
that color. I know, look. And when you
Yeah.
have a cork, the cork is porous and it slowly allows oxygen to come in. And that's when you get the tertiary flavors and the wine age taste.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that oxygen isn't great if you don't have alcohol. So we eliminate the oxygen from entering the bottle.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
And
I
it's
love it.
easier,
Yeah.
easy peasy.
You don't have to
You
carry
don't,
one of these.
that's what I was gonna say. You don't have to have like an accoutrement there. Um, yeah, and people are getting used to it. I don't think
Yeah.
it's
But
weird or it's cheap
not
anymore.
anymore. Mm-mm. I think we're over that.
Yeah. So the idea to make it 3.5% was, first of all, nobody was doing it below 6%. And therefore, I had to do a lot of my own research, including compliance regulations. But I'm used to that because I did the AVA, I did all my own colas, my label
You're
approvals.
basically like a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I agree.
exactly. So on the back of the Syrah, you have, of course, the nutritional facts panel, because it's lower than 6%, and the ingredients because it's lower than 6%. So this is an FDA thing, but also because it has alcohol, it has the government warning to tell you that you shouldn't consume if you're pregnant, and you definitely shouldn't operate heavy machinery. Or now it says you shouldn't drive a car. Yeah, totally agreed. But one glass of 3.5% Syrah, by the time you get to the car, you know, I would say you could drink a glass of this
You're
and you
okay.
could drive just fine. It may impair. Yeah, it's just like this wine is so great for occasions where you want to be like on point, right? You want to have a few glasses of wine, but still say it's a networking or something. You're
Yeah.
going in with an idea, you have certain people you want to talk to, and you want to have an outcome. Having a couple of glasses of this does not get in the way of you getting it done.
Yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
yeah, or your next day.
Yeah. Or you feel like,
Yeah,
doesn't
even
take
sleep
much anymore, does it?
now. And you don't have to worry so much about sleep and all of those things.
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna try this. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, the texture is impressive.
Appreciate that. That's a little bit of that alcohol.
Yeah.
However, it's also 10 months in barrel. with extended, lees stirring.
Yeah,
So those two things, yeah.
you can feel that. Like you can taste that extension because it's like it's almost earthy,
Yeah,
the
yeah, it's got
the
like pepper,
mhm.
like those, yeah. And it has a little bit of like, they call forest floor, like,
Yeah, but I think
the
that's the
bark.
lees. Don't you
Yeah.
think it's
Oh
the
yeah,
stirring of
totally.
the natural ingredients and whatnot? Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, it tastes like wine, right?
Mhm.
It's That's one thing about some of these no and low wines is they take a little bit of a left-hand turn, a departure from the origin. And I really feel that this wine,
It's great.
it's thanks.
Yeah,
It's
I am super.
familiar.
Yeah, I'm impressed. It's like the texture's there, the earthiness is there. And I don't have a problem with people making, other products that are teas and juices or whatever.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's not the original wine that you know, we know.
totally.
I mean,
It's
I've been
not
in,
wine.
yeah,
It's a
and this does have that familiarity to it.
that wine lovers crave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love this with some meats and cheeses, just a charcuterie,
Charcuterie,
that would be
slams.
perfect.
Yes, it is perfect. You don't even have to get complicated.
No.
Just have something to snack on. And
Yeah.
always having something to eat when you're drinking wine makes the experience more pleasurable.
Much.
Always.
Yeah. Because then you're with people and it's an experience. And
Yeah, you're
yeah.
with people, but eventually, your first few sips are fine on their own. But eventually, it really begs for that compliment of either it's cheese or it's savory or meaty or whatever. It
Yeah.
always just is better with food.
Yeah. No, that's red wine in general.
So
Yeah.
another thing that the alcohol does, you may know this, but others may not, is it brings the aromatic compounds out of solution. So what they call that is like an aroma delivery system.
Okay.
So when you have a non-alcoholic wine, sometimes it's kind of hard to smell, right? You're like, where is it?
Yeah.
Not only are there less aromatic compounds, but there's nothing to release it. So
Yeah.
that's another reason why just having a little bit of alcohol really is, you
Now,
know,
does this open up a little?
it does. Yep. It'll open up. And it doesn't have to be consumed in one day either. It could be, say, over 3 days, but I would recommend throwing it in the refrigerator after you open it. It
Okay.
extends the life.
Okay. Yeah, I've got one of those toppers that kind of supposedly sucks the air out.
I use those too.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
winemaker also told me that if he's like, well, if you're getting up to take the wine to put on your bar or counter or whatever, he's like, just blow carbon dioxide into it and then put the top on.
for sure. It just pushes, yeah, the
It's
oxygen
that
out.
simple. Yeah, just get the oxygen out.
Yeah, simple. Yeah, well, I'm glad you like the wine. That makes me feel great. We
No, it's
made a very
fantastic.
small amount. We made 80 cases. Mm,
Wow.
I know
How
we
do you
have
sell this?
35 left
Consumer?
on our website.
Okay, so
Uh,
it's all direct to consumer. You're
Direct to
basically all
consumer.
direct to consumer at this point then.
No, we're about 50%
Okay.
because we value wholesale partners, especially as we grow and scale. I didn't have I don't know. I launched with Boisson. So the first vintage of our Oceano Zero Pinot Noir, I launched with a wholesale partner because I didn't know how to sell it really, and I wanted to test it and leave it to Boisson because at that time they were really not the only game in town, but the most, I guess, the most prominent. And at the same time, more people were interested in non-alcoholic wine or hearing about our wines. So we had all this website traffic at the same time, but I didn't know that ahead of time that was going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, so people are just looking online for non-alcoholic wines. Really hard to find in store, but less so now that like Total Wines of the world have a lot of options. But people had to buy it online. So maybe we could be 100% DTC, but I'm not that patient,
I
frankly.
get it. I mean, if you really want to grow and scale, then you got to have both elements.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
The idea is that more people have access to non-alcoholic wine, and that requires wholesale partners.
So how many states are you in?
We have distribution in 5 states.
Okay.
And this, like this Syrah is in DC, Maryland, and Virginia with a distributor. See, that's the difference too. So the low alcohol, I have to go the traditional system, 3-tier system. So I rely on my wine distributors of my traditional wines that I've, established my relationship with them through those wines. They also picked up the Syrah as well as Missouri. My distributor in Missouri has the Syrah, and California, we sell direct because we're a California winery, but we're in negotiations right now with California distributor. But for all of and in North Carolina and South Carolina, I was like, where are those other states to make up that number? So North Carolina, South Carolina, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Missouri, California is in distribution. However, also on our website. Now our non-alcoholic wine is in all of those states as well, plus on the Zero Proof website. Maybe you're familiar with the Zero Proof. They've got a great selection. They're awesome. Everyone in that company is awesome. Poisson also, and Sachet, Sachet, do you know Emily Hines?
I know the
Her
name.
company is Sachet. It's in South Carolina and Charleston. It's a brick and mortar. She also had Sachet in Target. So her wines were not only, they also
Yeah.
produce wine too, but had a portfolio of wines, and they were all in Target, and they have an online presence. So Sachet is alcohol flexible. It's like for the consumer that isn't yes or no. So they have alcohol products, they have non-alcoholic, they have functional, they have THC, and whatever else. Things are coming up all the time.
Hey, you just mentioned them all.
Yeah.
All the new ones.
But Sachet is the only retailer that carries our entire lineup. So they have our traditional wines, our Oceano Ultra and Oceano Zero wines. They sell them all. So it's
Okay, very
very
cool.
unusual. And Emily, she's incredible founder. And so, and a great partner.
Awesome. I guess I need to meet her.
You definitely need to meet her.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I'll make the intro.
Okay. Very cool. Well, I can't help but think, like, since you're so excited about this new technology, if you had a bottle of, say, the Shard from before and then a bottle of the Shard after the technology, and we were able to compare the two, that would be really fun.
Yeah. Name the date. Let's do it.
You
Yeah.
want to?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Yeah, let's do it. I think that'd be so fun to test
Awesome.
that out and talk about, the quality of this new machinery that you're getting access to.
I did a side-by-side tasting of, what was the current machines that were available, and same wine through all of them. And it was obvious that I had to go for obviously the highest quality option,
Huh?
which I believe, this is all opinion, right?
Vision. I call it vision.
Vision, but also like taste is a matter of opinion, right? Like art,
Yeah.
wine, quality, you can't really make that argument as much. But in my opinion, this is the direction everyone will go. We're just lucky enough to be close to the people setting this up in California. And so we had early access, put it that
That's
way.
really
It's kind
cool.
of like wine industry folks, you know?
Yeah.
That's another thing is like in not no and low alcohol wine, not everyone's like in the wine business, in the wine industry, are like winemakers. There are a lot of non-alcoholic I mean, there are some that are incredible, like Geeson, the winemaker there. He just took his MW test. Like he is an incredible winemaker, knows his stuff. But you don't have to. There are a lot of what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of non-alcoholic wines in the market, not the wines of quality, but a lot in the market that are bulk wine. So somebody made them, but you have access to bulk wine and you can have a company just deliver you with your label whatever you want. So company X has a non-alcoholic wine they just launched, but they don't have a relationship with the grape grower and they
Right.
didn't make the wine and they did, but they taste the product. Okay, that's good enough for me to put my label on it. But not everyone is an artisan. Not everyone has an artisanal approach,
Right.
or it's not everyone is releasing the non-alcoholic wines that they made.
Right. I understand your distinction. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. There's you work with the people that are working in your vineyards. You selected these certain vineyards for a certain reason. I mean, it's like kind of the farm to table aspect
it is.
of things versus buying in bulk.
That's
Where
right.
multiple
And
growers and yeah.
that's why it's so important to me to have single vineyard sourcing.
Yeah,
So
100%.
the traceability, knowing that I can go and see the vines that made this wine.
Right.
It's
That's
cool.
really cool.
Super farm to table. Vine to glass. Vine,
Bind a glass.
yeah,
Yes, I like that.
me too.
Really, really cool. So, do you have any mentors that you want to mention that have kind of helped you
Mentors.
along?
Well, I would have to say that my stepfather is a major mentor
Yeah.
because of he brought me, it's his fault.
It's Timmy.
He brought me into this. No, he's a mentor. Maybe more so now than ever, now that I'm on my own. And
That's great.
yeah, I'm super grateful and value his input and his positive energy toward what I'm building. And my other mentor is Lucy Morton, and Lucy's an ampelographer, which is it's a study. Well, what do you say? You can identify a grape variety and clone. So nerdy by the vine itself, the leaves, the tendrils, the cluster, the size of the grapes. So anyway, Lucy, she is our consultant at my family's winery, Boxwood, and she is like the mother of grapes, and
That's awesome.
she's incredible. And she taught me so much, not only in the vineyard, but being an executive within the company to manage and run the vineyard. And she taught me how to prune. But also, she helped me introduce me to the University of Bordeaux program, the diploma program at the School of Enology. So she helped me a great deal, and we worked together very closely at Boxwood. And so I always look back, very fondly
Yeah, that's great.
and love her. And, I hate to be like so lame, but that's like kind of it. My peers are my mentors in a way,
Yeah.
and I learn through watching them discover, innovate, grow. So I consider them to be unofficial mentors. to me, and
Yeah.
I enjoy doing the same for others, especially those who want to get into the non-alcoholic space, who have wineries. There's a lady that I met at the direct consumer wine symposium. I gave a session on not growing a luxury non-alcoholic wine business, and her winery is in Carmel, and she wanted to do a non-alcoholic wine, but she was getting resistance from her team. And it's just her winery. So anyway,
There's that.
so really, and she came up to me and was talking to me after the session, and I told her, I will help you. I will tell you everything that I know and help you
Yeah.
make
Nice.
these wines. And so I like doing that. I like
Yeah.
helping women, of course. But anyone who is, who has to manage those types of relationships that even though you're the owner of the winery, your team doesn't want to follow your lead. And it's not like you're tell them what to do, but get on board,
Right.
in a positive way. So I get a lot of joy from that
Yeah, that is really cool. Being able to give back and helping others,
and make better
it's nice.
non-alcoholic wines for all people.
Yeah, it it kind of related to Ted Basler, who used to be the CEO of St. Michel Wine Estates, would say at our meetings, whenever you see Washington wine on a wine list in a restaurant, wherever it is, whatever state it is, we all win because Washington is represented. And it's kind of the same philosophy. It's like you want better quality of wines, and if you can help people understand how to do that, you're helping raise the level of quality for the entire category.
That's right. And therefore helping, it's like the whole ecosystem. Then the consumer will be like, hey, this is really a thing. And I can enjoy non-alcoholic wine. Therefore, there's a bigger market for all of us.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you elevate the industry, be great in the pie, you large and whatever, make it bigger.
Make it bigger. So what about any resources? I know you're a researcher and a writer. Is there any, professional or anything that you've used that you want to share with the audience?
Well, in fact, I'm writing a certification program for non-alcoholic wine with AFNA, which is it's
Yeah.
aficionado. Yeah. So
Yeah, Megan. Okay, so you're working with
Megan is
Megan.
my partner on the
Okay.
AFNA certified non-alcoholic wine program.
Excellent.
I am writing that now. So I'm doing a ton of
You're creating
research.
a research,
Yeah, I'm
a
doing that.
resource.
Yes, I am creating the resource. That
Yeah,
is
that's
right.
great.
And we're going to be rolling that out in a digital format, but also in short videos. So like a TikTok style format. So it's not just for us, long form reader type people.
Okay, so it's tidbits.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing, that the points that really matter when you're getting questions on site. So this is for people who are enthusiasts, but it's really people in the trade. So if you are a wine steward at a restaurant, or you're working the floor in a wine store, or you are selling wholesale, so, say Southern or RNDC or Winebow or whatever company, they're selling non-alcoholic wines, and their salespeople should be AFNA wine certified. And that is what we're building to. Even, if you go to a Marriott, and it's all about hospitality. And so the entire hospitality system will benefit. And therefore, of course, consumers will benefit. And that's what this is all about.
Nice. I love it. So, in terms of pain points, it sounds like you were able to grow your brand pretty quickly because you had your head wrapped around how to do the whole social media component to it. And then you're also really smart in getting ahead of the curve of the non alcoholic piece. So people are, researching you, but is there any major pain point that you've experienced that you've overcome?
Always, constantly. There's always obstacles, and I'm finding the
Fires.
joy. I'm finding the joy in the obstacles. That's my new thing I'm learning. Um, that let's see. I mean, right now for so many, because what we're doing is new and we're all learning as we're doing it, the non-alcoholic wine. I've experienced maybe problems with the wine that I didn't know would happen. And I had some fizzy bottles that just throughout the production that I didn't know about until customers told me, or that happens.
Ooh.
How do you handle it? Right? It's all about how you handle it. So we figured out the problem and we fixed it. So
Great.
that's a massive one.
Yeah.
But we only know as much as what the people who are running the technology know.
Right.
We only know as much as there are resources.
Well, when you're building a new product,
Yeah,
you're learning along the way.
that's right. There's trial and error.
Yeah.
And then I would say I had a real learning. I'm like, oh, let's go. During COVID, I had a big customer with the letter of intent and wiring details and all of that. And, it was a container of wine export. And I wasn't the only brand that was
Was
in on
affected.
this thing.
Yeah.
And then it was during COVID, and all of a sudden it was like ghosted. We were ghosted. Other companies that were involved were ghosted. So I had prepared my production for this big order, and that left me with a lot of inventory. And I had to
Yeah.
climb
That's
out
a
of
lot of
that.
inventory.
It's really tough, you know?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of learnings and makes me a better entrepreneur, It makes us a stronger company to have not, to learn from those things, not let it define us, and not, don't quit, stick around.
Yeah.
And I heard, I don't remember who it was, but the person who wins is the last one standing, you know? So you just keep going. If you have something good, don't get me wrong, it's got to be good and there has to be potential. No matter the headwind, just keep
Yeah.
going.
Stick, don't quit.
Stick,
Does
don't
that
quit.
rhyme?
Yeah,
Stick,
it does.
don't
It
quit.
does to me.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean it can get, and um being an entrepreneur can get lonely or siloed. It's not like you're
Yeah.
lonely because your love is what you're building. You're not lonely, but you can um isolate. It can be isolating. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, why I do so much travel. It's travel for business, but I get inspired by nature and travel and culture and learning about other people's businesses. And so that helps me stay connected. But I'm also a member of Les Dames de Scoffier. I'm a member of the DC and New York chapters. And so my home chapter is New York. So I rely on Les Dames de Scoffier, other Dames. They're my mentors and my peers.
Nice.
So making sure you're uh, you are engaged with, you know, I'm super nerd for what I'm doing. So, I don't need to go play golf. Okay. Like I don't need like a hobby that takes me out of where I am, but I can still engage in communities and things that are adjacent that enforce my own company and position.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have puppies and pools. That's it.
I love puppies.
We've got we had our all our plants in Florida. We have my office looks out at the yard, and so the pool toppers, the covered thing. So we took all the plants out and put them on the walkway around, and so we put up a bird feeder and a hummingbird feeder, and it has just been
Joy.
yeah, it's just lovely in the mornings, just kind of taking a break and looking outside and watching the robins. We have a lot of robins and one hummingbird so far. One
One
hummingbird.
needs to go tell its friend it's being
Yeah,
greedy. It's greedy with all that
yeah.
sugar water.
Well, we got the wrong hummingbird feeder apparently because it attracted bees. And so we're
Learning.
taking the bees away from pollinating, so we can't do that. So we got
My
another
God.
one, and the bees can't apparently get to it. So we're excited. We're excited about it's those little things, right? That just
Yeah, for me,
make your
it's
day.
that's nature, right? And
Yeah.
I love dogs. I've had dogs. I've had like the quintessential vineyard dog at Boxwood, and he was a border collie, like the whole jam. And so I get that, and I would love to have puppies too, but I
Uh,
travel too much. Yeah, yeah. So you got to visit other people's puppies or go to puppy yoga, which I've been
there you
invited
go.
to.
That's
It's a thing.
interesting. That's a thing, huh?
Yeah.
Do they have those cat cafes in New York yet?
I've heard of them. I don't know the
Because New
answer.
York, I could imagine they're in Tokyo or in Japan.
Yeah, the New Yorkers tend to be dog people.
Yeah.
It seems, yeah, there are a lot of dogs. Not that there should be, but no, I'm not judging anyone.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of floors, like to go down the elevator when your dog has to go out in the morning.
Yeah. Fair. I lived in New York a long, long time ago. I haven't been back in a while. I need to get back up there. Go
Yeah,
check it out.
it's awesome. So yeah, we're the one thing that I didn't really talk about that we're doing or preparing for is, as we're producing more wine, because there's a market for it, and we're like, I don't want to like get too ridiculously excited, and we're making great wines. We're scaling requires capital,
Yeah.
and we've been 100%, 100%, 100%. That's a new term.
100%. Like, we got all these new things going on in
Yeah,
this podcast. I love
right.
it.
100% self-funded, and now I'm at the point where um I need some capital from outside sources. So I'm currently raising to get us to that, that point where we are raking in the mills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was something that's on the back of my mind is to ask you about what that might be like. I guess you haven't really started to manage the investor community quite yet, but you're
yeah,
getting to the point where it's time to get that capital to
yeah,
get the
that's
glass,
right.
get the production, get more vineyards,
Right. Yeah, because we
get
have
more
to plan for
contracts.
all this ahead of time, right? Because it's the
Yep.
great production that, I need to be funded, 18 months in advance
18.
of
Yeah. Okay.
what I'm selling. So yeah, so we're just at the point where we're actively raising, and I met with my first potential investor today, and things, you know,
It's
things are
exciting.
looking good. Yeah, it was a big day for me. And so we're looking forward to finding, people who are excited about the category and believe in it and are
Mhm.
looking for somewhere to put their money and bring a profit back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have a really telling story. I mean, I don't know a lot of companies, period, that run out of product because they're so popular. So I
Right.
think that that's a pretty, and you've got the ratings behind you. So it's it's not an easy story to tell, but it sells itself, right? In a lot of
And
ways.
right, and the wine too. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
have, this new wine out so they can taste what they're going to be investing in with this new technology. So I'm speaking to the National Association of Wine Retailers early May, and I'm having samples made from the barrel for them to taste with the new technology. And so from that, I'll have some samples to share with potential investors. So,
Yay.
they could see it in physical form and taste it for themselves.
Okay. Very cool. What a great
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
I'll keep you
Well,
posted how
that's
it goes.
exciting. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited for you.
Thank you.
What about your outlook? I mean, it seems pretty bright for you. I know the wine industry is kind of struggling a little bit here and there, but it ebbs and flows. Things evolve and change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a really tough time right now. And there are wineries, of course, that are going out of business and deciding that,
Constellation just sold all their wines.
yeah, all of they're keeping the premium and they're selling everything less than the premium.
They're keeping the Kim and
I don't
Naomi.
know if they're keeping,
No,
no, they're selling that.
the
They're
high end,
keeping the
yeah,
high end.
high end stuff that no one knows that they have,
Yes. Right. Right. So
and
it's like,
selling the
hey,
Kims and the Naomis.
that's right. It's like, hey, Constellation, when you're ready for me, let me know. So yeah, it's a tough place. I know for a fact that retailers are selling less wine. I think it's around 25% less than years previous, and they're trying to figure out how to make up for that revenue. And I think that's, cannabis beverages have really helped them do that. And
RTDs. Yep.
yep, and non-alcoholic to a certain extent, but I think that it's the fine wine retailers that have been hit really, really hard. And it's not only the reduction in consumption of alcohol, but some of their customers are at the end of their life cycle,
Yeah.
because it's fine wine and certain, takes they're expensive. And also there's just people are drinking less. They're looking at other state change beverages. So things that have an effect.
State change.
State change. There's another one. So things that
Hashtag state change.
yes, that have an effect, like cannabis. So when
Cannabis.
you
Yeah.
consume it and alcohol, your state changes. So it's a state change. So if they're not doing it with alcohol, then they're looking to cannabis for that, or functional beverages like mushroom or whatever. So for fine wine retailers, wine at the quality of Oceano Zero opens up, the possibility of making up that lost revenue from traditional wines and getting a
Yeah.
new
Which is so
customer
important.
that
Yeah.
they didn't have access to before.
Yeah. That's true.
And
Yeah, well,
so,
that's really exciting. I'm super
yeah,
pumped for you. Congratulations
thanks,
on all your
Jesse.
success. And it's been a pleasure sitting down with you and tasting your wine. It's amazing. So, seriously, if you want
Thanks,
to do
Jesse.
like that Chardonnay tasting after you
Yeah,
have
let's do
the
it.
new technology, I think that'd be
Let's do it.
rad.
Yeah, it would
That'd
be
be
rad.
fire.
It'd be fire. Exactly. I'd love to
Oh,
do
as my
it.
13-year
And
old would say,
perfect. You
my
need that.
nephew.
Yeah, you need those
Fire.
around. You need those around.
That's right.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure spending the time with you. And I appreciate you sharing your audience with me and introducing me to them. And I look forward to many more and seeing, your podcast blow up. And,
Yeah.
yep.
We're
So
turning a corner right
congratulations.
now. I'm
Incredible.
excited. Yeah, it's
Congrats.
takes time. Like, it's time and work
Takes
and
time. Yeah,
consistency.
can't get away from it. You have to
Yep.
invest in time and find out where you can lose the least amount of time. So identify distractions and, don't go after what you can say. That's a distraction. No, stay on target. And I know you can do that.
Focus is hard. I'm a high visionary, so focusing is kind of hard. I'm kind of like you. Like, so for me, I've had people ask me, well, like, I'll pay you for your consulting on how to build a podcast, but I'm not there yet. Like, I feel like once I get there and I know that formula, then I'm happy to help people. But I feel like I'm in that part right now where I've made some mistakes and now I got to pay for that. And,
Yeah.
and now I'm rebuilding.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
I
and
feel
that's
it.
in every business. That's in every business,
Yeah. That's right. Well, you made those mistakes or whatever you learned from, and they're in the past,
Yep.
and then there's going to be times where you make another mistake and you're going to learn from that, and you're going to be 2 steps ahead of the person behind you. That's the way that I see it,
Yeah.
is they're
Yeah.
not setbacks. No, it helps me reach further.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. You really do learn more from your mistakes than anything else, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's essential.
100%. But it's
Yeah.
fun. I mean, it's a different world and, you kind of work for your family, but I don't know how much corporate exposure you've had or, just business in general. It
Yeah.
can be kind of hard and a grind sometimes, and when you're kind of doing it on your own, it's you own your destiny every day and
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah. That is very cool. I've never been in corporate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's it's it has its everything has its pluses and minuses. I mean, you know.
sure. Yep.
So, but I think what I'm seeing in the marketplace is a lot of people, that either have been kind of not really kicked out, but like not really aged out either. It's just sort of like either their salaries are too high and they need the money or whatever the case may be. A lot of people are not ready to retire. They still have the relationships. And so they're really digging their heels in all this innovation. And there's so much of it out here for all of us to enjoy and to, be a part of it. And it's kind of like a reinvigorating energy out here.
Yeah, totally. And I think having a corporate background is helpful, because you know how to like plan an attack.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I would say that I'm not exactly the best person to create structure in an organization. And with a corporate organization or even small businesses that are successful, they do have like certain structures that are good for people, to kind of to grow with.
You have to, especially like you have a vision to, expand and create a real serious big company, then you have to have that set up so that when you're ready to bring people in, it's easier for that. You owe it to them.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, this is so fun. You're such a delight, and I'm super pumped. I hope you kill it with all these investor meetings and
Thanks,
and
Jesse.
get what you need, because I think obviously the world is ready for you.
I believe so.
Your wines. It's time.
Yeah, it's time. It's time. Well, I'll make that intro,
Okay.
to
Great.
Emily, because I
To
think she'd
Emily.
be
Okay.
great. Yep.
Okay.
Another
Fantastic.
awesome, strong female founder. So there we
I
go.
love it. Nice.
All right. Well, thanks. Yeah, exactly.
Do a little jig. Do a little jig.
Exactly. Well, thanks, Jesse. We'll talk soon. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll let you get back to it. Bye.
Bye.
Produced by Fedora J Productions. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week.